Imagine waking up one morning to find your entire country in ruins. Cities that once stood proud had vanished beneath smoke and fire. Millions of people had lost their homes. Factories had stopped producing. Transportation systems had collapsed. Food was scarce, jobs were disappearing, and hope itself seemed to be fading. This was Japan in 1945. The Second World War had ended, but for Japan, the real struggle was only beginning. 2 atomic bombs had devastated Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Large parts of Tokyo had already been destroyed by conventional bombing. More than a quarter of the nation's industrial capacity had disappeared, and the economy was on the verge of total collapse. Few countries in modern history have experienced destruction on such a scale. At that moment, almost no one believed Japan could ever become prosperous again. Many international observers predicted that Japan would remain dependent on foreign aid for decades. Some even questioned whether the country could ever rebuild a competitive industrial economy. After all, Japan faced enormous disadvantages. It possessed very few natural resources. It imported most of its oil. It lacked significant reserves of iron ore. Its agricultural land was extremely limited. And unlike many resource-rich nations, Japan could not rely on valuable minerals to finance its recovery. Everything appeared to be working against it. Yet history often takes unexpected turns, because less than 40 years later, Japan had achieved something that seemed impossible. Its automobiles were driving on roads across every continent. Its electronics filled homes around the world. Its companies became symbols of quality, precision, and innovation. Brands such as Toyota, Sony, Honda, Panasonic, Canon, Nissan, and Mitsubishi were no longer simply Japanese companies. They had become global leaders. By the 1980s, Japan had built one of the largest economies on Earth. The same nation that had once struggled to feed its own population was now exporting advanced technology to nearly every corner of the world. But this transformation did not happen by luck. It was not the result of hidden natural wealth, nor was it simply because Japan worked harder than everyone else. Behind this remarkable story stood a series of bold decisions, painful sacrifices, long-term planning, and an extraordinary belief in one simple idea: that the greatest resource any country can possess is not buried beneath the ground. It is the potential of its people. To understand how Japan became one of the world's greatest economic powers, we first need to return to its darkest moment, because every extraordinary comeback begins with total collapse. When the war ended, Japan faced one of the greatest reconstruction challenges in modern history. Factories had been destroyed. Transportation networks barely functioned. Inflation was spiraling out of control. Millions of soldiers returned home to find that their jobs no longer existed. Entire families struggled just to survive. For a moment, it seemed as though the country had lost not only its economy but also its future. But rebuilding Japan required far more than repairing buildings. It required rebuilding institutions. During the years that followed, sweeping reforms began to reshape the nation. Large landowners lost much of their property, giving millions of ordinary farmers the opportunity to own land for the first time. Education was expanded across the country. The financial system was reorganized. New democratic institutions were established. These reforms created a more stable foundation for long-term economic growth. At the same time, Japan found itself in a unique geopolitical position. As tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union intensified during the Cold War, Japan became an important strategic partner in Asia. American investment, technology, and access to international markets helped accelerate Japan's recovery. But outside support alone could never have created an economic miracle. Many countries received foreign assistance after the Second World War. Very few transformed themselves the way Japan did. The real difference came from how Japanese leaders thought about the future. Rather than focusing only on immediate recovery, they developed a long-term national strategy. Their goal was not simply to rebuild what had been lost. Their goal was to build something far better than what had existed before. Government agencies worked closely with private companies. Banks provided long-term financing for industrial expansion. Businesses reinvested their profits instead of chasing short-term gains. Every major decision was measured by one simple question: would this make Japan more competitive tomorrow? This philosophy changed everything. Instead of competing through cheap labor alone, Japanese companies focused on quality. Every product had to become better than the last. Every process had to become more efficient. Mistakes were studied instead of ignored. Workers were encouraged to improve production methods continuously. This philosophy became known around the world as continuous improvement. It would later influence manufacturers across Europe and North America. But at the time, very few people outside Japan paid attention. Most of the world still underestimated the country. Many believed Japanese products were inexpensive because they were low quality. That assumption would soon prove to be one of the biggest mistakes in modern business history. The turning point came when Japanese companies stopped asking one simple question. Instead of asking, "How can we produce more?" they began asking, "How can we produce better?" That change in mindset transformed an entire nation. Quality became an obsession. Factories introduced systems that encouraged every worker to suggest improvements, no matter how small. Managers listened. Engineers experimented. Production lines evolved almost every single day. This culture of continuous improvement became one of Japan's greatest competitive advantages. Soon, a new generation of companies began to emerge. Toyota completely reimagined automobile manufacturing. Instead of producing cars in massive inventories, it developed an efficient production system that reduced waste, lowered costs, and improved quality at the same time. The Toyota production system would later become one of the most studied manufacturing models in history. Around the same time, Sony was changing another industry. Rather than competing only on price, Sony focused on innovation. Portable radios, televisions, music players, consumer electronics that were smaller, lighter, and more reliable than anything many competitors could offer. Honda followed a similar path. Starting with motorcycles, the company built a reputation for engineering excellence before expanding into automobiles that would eventually compete against some of the world's biggest manufacturers. Companies like Panasonic, Canon, Nikon, Toshiba, and Mitsubishi were also investing heavily in technology and precision manufacturing. Each company specialized in different industries, but they all shared one common philosophy: never stop improving. By the 1960s and 1970s, something remarkable had happened. Products labeled "Made in Japan" were no longer viewed as cheap alternatives. They became symbols of reliability. Consumers around the world began to trust Japanese engineering. Cars lasted longer. Electronics performed better. Cameras became the choice of professionals. Japanese companies weren't simply selling products anymore. They were building reputations. As exports increased, so did national income. Ships loaded with Japanese automobiles and electronics left ports every single day. Factories expanded. Employment grew. Living standards improved. Millions of families experienced opportunities their parents could never have imagined. The world was witnessing one of the fastest industrial transformations in modern history. and Japan was only getting started. By the early 1980s, Japan had achieved what once seemed impossible. Its economy had become the second largest in the world. Japanese companies dominated global markets. Toyota and Honda challenged American car manufacturers. Sony and Panasonic became household names across Europe and North America. Japanese banks ranked among the largest on Earth. Its ports handled enormous volumes of international trade, and Tokyo had become one of the world's most important financial centers. Many economists believed Japan's rise would continue indefinitely. Some even predicted that Japan would eventually overtake the United States as the world's largest economy. The confidence was everywhere. Real estate prices soared to extraordinary levels. Land in central Tokyo became so valuable that people joked the Imperial Palace was worth more than the entire state of California. Stock prices climbed year after year. Investors believed the market could never fall. Banks issued massive loans backed by rapidly rising property values. Companies borrowed heavily to expand even further. For a while, everything appeared perfect. But beneath the surface, a dangerous bubble was forming. Prices were no longer rising because of productivity. They were rising because everyone believed they would continue to rise. It was one of the largest asset bubbles in modern history. Then, in the early 1990s, reality returned. The stock market collapsed. Property prices fell dramatically. Billions of dollars in wealth disappeared. Banks were suddenly left with enormous unpaid loans. Businesses stopped investing. Consumers stopped spending. Economic growth slowed to a crawl. What followed became known as Japan's lost decade. Ironically, that decade lasted much longer than 10 years. For many countries, a crisis of this magnitude would have destroyed decades of progress. But Japan responded differently. Instead of abandoning its strengths, it focused on improving them. Companies became leaner. Manufacturing became even more efficient. Research and development continued. Engineers kept innovating. Businesses adapted to changing global markets instead of giving up. Japan proved that true economic strength is not measured by how fast a nation grows during good times. It is measured by how well it survives difficult ones. Once again, resilience became one of Japan's greatest competitive advantages. Today, Japan remains one of the world's most advanced economies. Its influence extends far beyond its size. Japanese companies continue to lead in robotics, precision manufacturing, automotive engineering, advanced materials, and industrial automation. Its high-speed rail network has become a global benchmark for safety and efficiency. Its factories continue to produce some of the highest quality products in the world. Its engineers are helping shape the future of artificial intelligence, semiconductor manufacturing, renewable energy, and medical technology. But perhaps Japan's greatest achievement cannot be measured by economic statistics alone. It proved that national success is not determined by geography. It is not guaranteed by natural resources, and it is certainly not decided by luck. Japan never discovered vast oil fields. It never possessed enormous mineral wealth. Its mountains limited agriculture. Its islands forced it to import much of the raw materials needed to build its industries. Yet none of those limitations stopped its progress. Instead of depending on what existed beneath the ground, Japan invested in what existed inside its people. It invested in education. It invested in engineering. It invested in research. It invested in discipline. And above all, it invested in a culture that believed improvement should never end. Generation after generation, that philosophy transformed an entire nation. The companies became stronger because the people became more skilled. The economy became stronger because innovation became part of everyday life. The country became stronger because long-term thinking replaced short-term success. Perhaps that is Japan's greatest lesson. Every nation begins with different advantages. Some have oil, some have gold, some have fertile land. But history repeatedly shows that those resources alone are never enough. The countries that shape the future are often the ones that invest in knowledge, technology, and human potential. Because the most valuable resource on Earth is not buried underground. It walks into classrooms every morning. It works inside laboratories every day. It designs the ideas that change the world. And it builds the future long before anyone else can see it. That is the story of Japan. A nation that rose from devastation, not once, but twice. If you enjoyed this documentary, let us know in the comments which country we should cover next. And if you want to discover how nations become global powers, subscribe to Built for Billions, because behind every great country, there is always a story worth telling.